Hello everyone, JJ here from Radio Technology Academy. I'm really excited to be with you today with a brand new video and a fresh lesson. We're going to explore something that's both interesting and very important in X-ray physics, the anode heel effect. It might seem a little tricky at first, but don't worry. We'll go step by step with illustrations and practical examples so you can fully understand it from a physical perspective. Back in 1895, when Wilhelm Röntgen first built his X-ray tube, he used a Crookes tube. The anode, back then, was basically a thick piece of metal, or even just the end of a glass tube. According to Biomedical, Röntgen's first anode had an angle of about 90 degrees, almost perpendicular to the X-ray beam. As X-ray tubes evolved, engineers noticed challenges with heat, image quality, and focal spot management. Over time, with the development of rotating anodes and improved tube designs, the anode angle was gradually reduced. Modern diagnostic X-ray tubes usually have an angle between 6 and 20 degrees, as reported by Radiopedia. Why this specific range? It's all about balancing physics and engineering. First, the effective focal spot. When electrons hit a tilted anode, they spread over a larger area, helping to manage heat. But because of the tilt, the X-rays exiting the tube appear to come from a smaller spot, improving image resolution. This principle is known as the line focus principle, as described in Biomedical. Second, heat management. Electrons hitting the anode generate a lot of heat. A larger angled surface spreads that heat more efficiently, allowing higher exposures and protecting the tube. Third, beam geometry and the heel effect. If the anode were straight up at 90 degrees, the beam would be more uniform, but the anode would overheat. If the angle were too small, say less than 5 degrees, X-rays toward the anode side would travel through more material, be absorbed more, and create an uneven beam. This unevenness is called the heel effect, which is also explained in X-ray sources, 125 years of developments. So the 6 to 20 degree range is a carefully chosen compromise, sharp enough for high-quality images, spread heat efficiently, and keep the heel effect within acceptable limits. Interestingly, studies like the systematic review, Anode heel effect, does it impact image quality in digital radiography? On ResearchGate suggests that in digital systems, the heel effect may not always significantly affect image quality, but it remains a fundamental part of X-ray tube physics. To summarize, the angled anode, usually between 6 and 20 degrees, is a result of over a century of engineering optimization. From Röntgen's first 90-degree Crookes tube to today's rotating anode systems, the design balances image quality, heat management, and beam uniformity. Next time you see a modern X-ray tube with a 12-15 degree anode, remember it's not random. It's smart engineering backed by physics and decades of research, as confirmed by sources like Biomedical and Radiopedia. Let's begin with the X-ray tube itself. Inside the tube, electrons are produced at the cathode, the negative side. These electrons are accelerated at high speed toward the anode, the positive side. When the electrons collide with the anode, most of their energy becomes heat, but a small portion is converted into X-ray photons. This is the basis of X-ray production. The anode is usually made of tungsten, which has excellent thermal and mechanical properties. Tungsten can withstand extremely high temperatures and high-energy electron impacts. A very important detail is that the anode is angled rather than flat. Modern diagnostic X-ray tubes typically have an anode angled between 6 and 20 degrees, according to sources like Radiopedia and Biomedical. Why is this angle so critical? Let's explore. The first concept is the line focus principle. By angling the anode, the area where electrons hit becomes larger, which helps spread the heat over a wider surface. At the same time, the X-rays exiting the tube appear to come from a smaller focal spot, which improves image sharpness and resolution. Heat management is also key. Electrons carry a massive amount of kinetic energy. When they hit the anode, most of this energy converts into heat. If the anode were flat, it would overheat quickly, limiting exposure time and potentially damaging the tube. By angling the anode, heat is distributed more efficiently, allowing for longer exposures without compromising the tube's lifespan. This is why understanding the angle of the anode is both a physics problem and an engineering solution. Now, let's focus on the Heal effect itself. Because the anode is angled, X-rays traveling toward the anode side must pass through more metal, so part of the beam is absorbed. On the other hand, X-rays leaving toward the cathode side pass through less material and are therefore more intense. Think of shining a flashlight through a piece of glass that is thicker at one end. The thicker side lets less light through. That's essentially the Heal effect. So when you look at an X-ray image, the cathode side appears brighter and the anode side appears darker. This difference is subtle but significant, especially when imaging large or uneven body parts. Now let's talk about how we can actually use or control the anode Heal effect in real clinical imaging. We'll go through different body parts and see exactly what to do in each case, where to place the cathode and anode, how to adjust SID, and how to get a more uniform exposure. 1. Hand AP or PA. Place the cathode side over the thicker part, the palm or wrist area. Use a tight collimation and a standard or slightly increase SID. This helps balance density across the hand and fingers. 2. Wrist. The thicker carpal region should be placed under the cathode. Keep the field small to reduce uneven exposure. 3. Forearm. Position the elbow end proximal part under the cathode and the wrist under the anode. This compensates for the natural taper and thickness. 4. Elbow. Keep the joint area, which is thicker, under the cathode side. Use proper filtration to smooth exposure differences. 5. Humerus. For a full-length humerus, place the cathode toward the shoulder side. If possible, increase the SID and use a smaller collimated field. 6. Oblique hand views. When rotating for oblique projections, make sure the thicker side faces the cathode. This maintains good brightness balance across the image. 7. Foot. Always position the cathode toward the heel, since it's thicker. This provides a more even exposure from heel to toes. 8. Ankle. Keep the posterior part of the ankle under the cathode. Watch the foot angle and field size for consistent results. 9. Tibia and fibula. Place the cathode over the knee, proximal end, the thicker part. Use a longer SID to reduce the Heal effect if needed. 10. Knee. For AP knee views, the femoral end proximal should face the cathode. Collimate tightly to reduce beam variation. 11. Femur. Always position the cathode over the proximal femur or hip area. Increase ID and take upper and lower segments separately if needed. 12. Hip. AP or lateral. The thick hip joint area should face the cathode. For lateral or oblique hip views, rotate the tube so the cathode still points to the thicker part. 13. Pelvis. The cathode should face the lower pelvis or femoral heads. Tight collimation will help reduce beam gradient. 14. Abdomen. Cub. Aim the cathode toward the pelvis, the lower, thicker region. Use a slightly longer SID and smaller field to minimize the Heal effect. 15. Chest. Chest in PA. In PA chest exams, the SID is usually long, around 180 centimeters, so the Heal effect is minimal. But if you do an AP portable, keep the cathode toward the diaphragm to give stronger intensity to the lung bases. 16. Chest. AP supine portable. In ICU or bedside cases, place the cathode at the lower chest side. Increase SID as much as possible to soften the Heal gradient. 17. Lateral chest. Place the cathode toward the posterior backside, since it's thicker. Proper collimation and KVP settings will help maintain contrast. 18. Thoracic spine. The cathode should face the lower thoracic vertebrae, T10, T12. This ensures consistent brightness across the upper and lower parts of the spine. 19. Lumbar spine. Keep the cathode toward the sacrum or pelvis, the thickest part of the lumbar region. If doing a long film, make sure the orientation stays the same for all exposures. 20. Cervical spine. For AP or lateral C-spine views, direct the cathode toward the lower neck C6, C7. This helps even out exposure where tissue thickness increases. 21. Skull. For skull AP or PA views, if one side is thicker, like the occipital area, position it under the cathode. The heel effect is usually mild here, but can help in small fields. Fascia binds sinuses. Direct the cathode toward the maxillary or thicker portion of the face. Keep the collimation tight for optimal sharpness. 23. Shoulder. Place the cathode toward the proximal humerus or shoulder joint. This enhances contrast in denser regions. 24. Scapula. Keep the thicker side of the scapula under the cathode. Use narrow collimation to minimize scatter. 25. Scoliosis. Whole spine stitching. Maintain the cathode direction toward the pelvis for every stitched section. This reduces brightness differences between frames. 26. Mobile bedside X-ray. Always check the cathode direction before taking the exposure. Position thicker anatomy, like the pelvis or abdomen under the cathode. Use long SID and tight collimation whenever possible. 27. Pediatric and neonatal imaging. Use long SID, tight collimation, and low-energy settings. Since the anatomy is small, the heel effect can appear stronger, so positioning is key. 28. Oblique or special extremity views. Always orient the cathode toward the thicker portion of the limb. Quickly confirm the direction before exposure. 29. Hip axial frog leg lateral place. The cathode over the proximal femur. If combining with pelvis imaging, adjust the direction for each exposure. 30. Contrast studies. Fluoroscopy. In fluoroscopy, control SID and beam angle to balance the heel effect across the screen. Some modern systems automatically compensate for intensity differences, but positioning still matters. Small orange diamond. General rules for everyday practice. Always check the cathode direction before imaging. Remember the golden rule: thicker side cathode, thinner side anode. Increase SID to reduce the heel effect. Use tight collimation to limit the field and minimize gradient. Use patient positioning first, not software, to correct uneven exposure. Even though digital systems can fix intensity differences, correct setup always produces cleaner, more consistent images. Several factors influence how strong the heel effect appears. Anode angle. Smaller angles create a stronger effect. Field size. Larger fields allow greater intensity variation across the image. Source to image distance SID. Longer distances make X-rays more parallel, reducing the effect. X-ray energy. Higher energy beams are less absorbed, reducing the heel effect. Practical tips. Use larger SID when possible. Reduce field size with collimation. Place thicker tissue under the cathode. Be aware of the tube's anode angle. Some modern X-ray systems also include software correction, which helps balance intensity across the image. I really hope this video helped you understand the anode heel effect better, and more importantly, how to actually use it in real clinical practice. If you still have any questions or want me to cover a specific topic next time, just leave a comment below. I always read them and I'll make sure to reply. And if you found this video useful, please don't forget to support the channel. Give it a like, drop a comment, and subscribe to Radiotech Academy. Your support really motivates me to keep creating more videos to help all students, radiographers, and biomedical engineers who want to master radiologic imaging the right way. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.